So Arsenal are on the verge of signing Merino for a bargain 30 million euros. That is 25 million pounds. Considering Calafiori cost them, I think, 34 million pounds. You're saying Arsenal have signed Calafiori and Merino and solved the left centre mid and the left back problems they've had with two perfect profiles that fit Arteta's system for like 59.7 million pounds. Considering they've got 35 million for Smith Rowe, they're going to get 30 million for Nketiah. They've basically essentially balanced their books if Nketiah to Marseille gets done, and that will give Arsenal the funds to go spend big on a striker, whether it's Gyökeres or Simhem, Ivan Toney, maybe Pedro Neto. Maybe they spend big elsewhere. But we're going to talk about the Merino deal, the latest on that, the latest on Nketiah, why Merino is such a good deal for Arsenal, and some other transfers Arsenal have planned. But I have to say, Arsenal are operating very smartly this window. I am very jealous as a Manchester United fan because they've got two great signings in, almost. Merino isn't done yet, but as Romano said, Arsenal are closing on the Merino deal as verbal agreement is now getting closer. Agreement in place on personal terms as Merino wants to move. Verbal discussions with Real Sociedad for a package in excess of about 30 million euros. Talks to get a deal done. So you're saying that Merino wants Arsenal, he's agreed personal terms with Arsenal despite everything else. There's an agreement in place. Fabrizio Romano said there's an agreement in place with Merino. Personal terms is there despite lots of clubs wanting him. 30 million euros. Arsenal was one step away from Mikel Merino. In the last few hours, the English club has presented a verbal offer, 30 million euros plus bonuses, and an agreement with Real Sociedad is close, and that was said by very reliable Matteo Moretta. It was said that Arsenal are close to striking a 30 million euro agreement with Real Sociedad for Mikel Merino. Talks have now entered key stages, payment structure, and finalising potential add-ons, already board agreement on personal terms. So that's Calafiori and Merino costing Arsenal a combined 60 million. Now, Merino's a really good signing for Arsenal. It's not as fancy as, a Fabio Ruiz or a Superman that they've been linked to. But when you look at what Arteta wants to do with Arsenal squad, which I'm going to talk about, Merino's incredibly smart because he is the best dual winner in Europe, and it's not even close. Duels won across Europe's top 5 leagues. He ranks third, 326. To put it into context, if you look at more aerial duels, because that was just duels in general, if you look at aerial duels and other stuff and his aerial impact, he ranks first for aerial wins in Europe's top 5 leagues. He has 50 more wins than Souček, Havertz, etc., more than Van Dijk and Pinnock, per 90 more than Gabriel, who's probably Arsenal's best player aerially, Saliba and White. That is how good Mikel Merino is in the air, and I've used that a few times. And Ben, who's an Arsenal fan, that's a really clever guy, does really good analysis on Twitter. I love reading his threads and stuff, said this. As good as we were on set pieces last season, I actually think our 11 lacks aerially dominant players. Plenty of height, but not many who are dominant. Gabriel's a clear standout. Targets like Calafiori, Onana, Merino, Osimhen, Seaman? Is it Osimhen? Apparently I say his name wrong. All offer this whilst providing technical ability, and he's spot on. Now, Amadou Onana has obviously gone to Villa because this was a couple of weeks ago, but you look at Merino, you look at Calafiori, the physical flooring of Arsenal's squad in the air has gone up a level. Mikel Arteta wants to play out from the back. While Arsenal are one of the best possession teams in the league, there's very similar principles to play out from the back. They've got really highly technically gifted players like, Ewan Timber's essentially a new signing, so technically gifted. Saliba's technically gifted. Odegaard's technically gifted. Rice's, Calafiori's. But Arsenal are so good in build-up, playing out from the back, press resistant, moving the ball. But there's another way Arsenal can do things, and that is play over the press. That is play the ball long and win it in the air. And Havertz did that in games like West Ham that are good in the air. Arsenal played over their press. Brighton, West Ham, and used Havertz and coming into midfield to win the ball because Havertz was good in the air. Now they've got Merino that would give them the ability if, build-up's not working or they're not playing out from the back effectively and want a bit more direct progression. They've got another option for the keeper to go long if need be with Merino. But with Merino, he's good in all phases. He can drop deep, receive the ball off the centre-back's turn, progress the ball, contribute to build-up because he's good in all phases, but also he can win aerial stuff. And he gives Arsenal a lot more unpredictability playing out from the back. And Mikel Arteta said last pre-season that he wants Arsenal to be less predictable, which was one of the reasons for the signing of Havertz because of his movement, drawing out defenders off the ball work, and that gives Arsenal that. Calafiori and Merino is not only going to help Arsenal set pieces, but aerially. And there's a reason that Onana and Weaver will sort out by the well-run clubs of Brighton and Aston Villa. Amadou Onana, Mats Weaver, Brighton, Aston Villa, they've gone to two very well-run clubs. They've got a lot of transfers right. And that is because the way football are going, those athletically dominant monsters are wanted back in. We're in a very technical world of football, but everyone's now being trained for academies to be technical. Now it's physically. If you are a physically dominant player that is good at winning duels, is a good frame, which is another reason Adam Wharton's so rated, who are becoming so sought after because of the physicality of the league, these long-legged monsters that can cover ground, that can win the duels, that can get in the way. And Arteta's ahead of that. Pep hasn't started this yet. Other big clubs haven't started yet. Brighton have, Villa have. The athletic flooring, the physical flooring. If you've got a good technical squad, so have Manchester City, but if you've got a good physical squad, if you beat Manchester City physically and technically, you win the league. I think that's something that Arsenal are looking at doing. Now, with Merino, he's good in all phases. He's a well-rounded Arteta profile. I think he complements Rice well. I think Rice is better as the defensive player. I think Rice can play as 8 with Jorginho, but I think if Rice drops back, I think Merino's contributions in the final third are better than Rice's. Merino is very comfortable at playing in the cross, playing in the line-breaking pass, and contributing in the final third. So is Declan Rice, but I think Merino, when you've lost Xhaka, who was one of your best ball progressors into the final third and key passes, I think Merino, while he's a different player to Xhaka, can add elements of that. Now, what you've got in Mikel Merino is an all-round 8. He can help in defensive phase, in build-up. He can help in the midfield phase, winning back the ball. You look at statistics for tackles, clearances, aerials won, and they can help in the end of the park and create. Arteta wants this player that has got no outstanding weaknesses, that is physically good, that can cover ground, that can press, that works hard, that can, has a really good work rate and can press and has the knowledge tactically to do what he wants to do. But Arteta also wants, on top of that, a player that is very, very good at tackling, very good defensively, that could play as 6 if something happens to Rice in Merino, but contributes to the attack, because I think Xhaka was a bigger miss than they thought. I think one of Arsenal's biggest problems, and everyone talks about Arsenal signing a striker, but one of Arsenal's 2 biggest problems in elements was Zinchenko in the big games wasn't good enough defensively, and they needed left-back security, Calafiori, and missing Xhaka, because I think Martinelli struggled a little bit, because at times maybe he was isolated or wasn't getting the ball quick enough. I think other elements was Saka being ran to the ground, and if you could bring in another winger that could rotate with Saka on the right that you trust a bit more than Nelson, that's a good bit of business to do. Striker that is more clinical, but Havertz and Jesus are good options, but maybe an out-and-out striker is needed. But I think it's such a smart move, Arsenal, such a smart bit of business. And this was the graph showing Mikel Merino compared to every other midfielder in his league. This is every other midfielder in La Liga. On the one going up is aerial duels per 90. Look how good Merino is at winning the ball in the air per 90 compared to everyone else. Now, along the bottom, I think is progressive passes, and Toni Kroos wins by a mile. Merino's in the middle for progressive passes, does well. Frankie de Jong, Rodrigo de Paul, Pedri, and Toni Kroos. Toni Kroos is way ahead. But you can look at Subamende and Bellingham, down there. And Arsenal want someone that can progress the ball, but someone that's dominant in the air. And you can see Mikel Merino, in terms of his physical profile, was what Arteta wants. So yeah, what an absolute bargain for Mikel Merino. I am going to get into the other Arsenal news in a second, but as I wrote about him, 6'3", ball duel-winning monster, good in all phases, technical attributes, can break lines, is good under pressure, final third abilities, tactical knowledge. I mean, he's experienced as well. He's played in the Prem before. He ticks a lot of boxes. Low risk signing, low risk, high reward signing. 25 million, fair play. There's a reason a lot of big clubs win for him, and I think it's actually really smart business, because when you were linked to Subamende and then you were linked to Merino, I was like, oh, nah, Subamende's a better player. Like, I watched them at the Euros. But then actually when you do your research and think what Arsenal need, now Merino's smart. Merino's smart. Now, Arsenal rejected today a new proposal from Olympique Marseille for Eddie Nketiah. It's understood to be in the region of 27 million euros, but that was considered not enough for Eddie to leave. Olympique Marseille agreed personal terms with Nketiah, but there is still no agreement. Arsenal want around 30 million euros for Nketiah, which is about 26 million pounds. If you can get 60 million pounds for Smith Rowe and Nketiah, you basically get your money back. If you can get 30 million euros from Nketiah and you pay 30 million euros from Merino, that's your money back. Your 35 million for Smith Rowe is your money covered for Calafiori. You've essentially got a whole new transfer budget to go and improve your attack and potentially win the league. I actually do think Arsenal are going to win the league. I hate to say it, I actually do. Obviously, this deal isn't done. But obviously, we had a situation with Marseille and Greenwood, and Marseille putting in bids, and Marseille took their time. They put a few lowball bids in, but it was done. It was done. It was expected to be done. You know what? That would probably be done. He's already agreed personal terms. So Arsenal want 30 million euros from Nketiah as well. This was said a few days ago, by the way. Marseille's latest bid is around 20 million euros. It's now been confirmed to be 25 million euros. It was said that when Smith Rowe's 35 million move to Fulham is complete, Arsenal will step up interest in Merino. Smith Rowe to Fulham has now been announced. This was said the other day. So Arsenal would like to step up for Merino. And they said another versatile forward, but not an out-and-out striker, of which there are few. Which is interesting, but it was said that Arsenal, after Merino, will look at a versatile forward. And I think Arsenal are thinking someone that can play left wing and right wing is more what we need. Trossard is great off the bench because you know he can score a goal, he's clinical. Martinelli, if he can find form and is at his best, is a great left wing option, but he dropped off in form last season. So Arsenal will be thinking, we're so reliant on Saka. Arsenal need Nico Williams. But now he's becoming a bit of a price, a bit of a rated because of the Euros. But I've said Arsenal, I said a year ago, go to my TikTok, June 2023, before the Euros, before the hype, I said Arsenal should go get this Nico Williams kid. And I will stick, it's a year later, I stick with that. I spoke about Calafiori, Nico Williams, these kind of players a year ago before the Euros hype. Because they're ballers. They're ballers. And Nico Williams, I put who Arsenal should sign. I actually did a video saying Arsenal should sign Timber, Declan Rice, Nico Williams last summer. And then he actually signed 2 of the 3, which is quite mad. But anyway, this was TikTok. Anyway, I think they'll go for versatile forward. Now, this is what the squad will look like, assuming Mikel Merino is done. Very good squad, but I do think, a little bit of depth on the wing just takes you to that final level because how intense the Premier League, how intense the Champions League is. I think, Havertz, Jesus can do a job in the middle. Like, Havertz proved second half of the season. It took Havertz, he was all right to begin with, but it took Havertz a couple months to get running. But I actually think I think only Cole Palmer got more goal contributions than Havertz since, February in the Premier League. Havertz really was on a run at the end of the season. I don't know if that's true, but he's top 5 or something for goal contribution since February, maybe. So players Arsenal will be linked to is Eze, Ivan Toney, Gyökeres, Osimhen, Nico Williams, Neto, Fabian Ruiz, Subamende. I think Fabian Ruiz and Subamende is off because obviously Merino is essentially done. I think Neto they could go for, but he is injury prone. Nico Williams potentially if that deal to Barca crashes. Gyökeres maybe, but they're saying they're not going for an out-and-out striker. Ivan Toney could be available on a bargain deal at the end of the window. Whether they want to do that will be interesting. I think Eze is going to be the one to watch. I think with Smith Rowe going as well, I think Eze is going to be the one to watch. The only question is he plays left wing and attacking midfield. Would Arsenal want someone that they know is happy and comfortable playing on the right because poor Saka was limping most of last season? I think Arsenal want Nico Williams. And I think it's a question of can they get him. I think Neto's their backup. Nico Williams, Neto, Eze probably wants to watch. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching today's video. This is my roundup of Arsenal news. I have to admit, you guys seem to be doing some smart business. You seem to be doing some big moves, and it does make me jealous. Please hit that like button. Of course, please do subscribe down below if you're new. Sorry about that. Thank you for watching. Bye.